So I think we can start. The topic of today's lecture is growth, responses, and regulation of growth. Uh, and the most of plants are regulated by genetic. And the shape of the plants, the color, and the everything is controlled by the genetics. And then different genes will express different way depending on the influence of the factors like the other genes and the environment. Also, the location of the cell in the body also helps to express the gene, and chemical signals that cell can receive from the surrounding cells can also help to develop into the specific type of the cell, and that will be the tissue. And the chemicals that regulate the development of the plants are called hormones, that are chemical compounds that can send signals between cells. And the hormones play a vital role in the growth and development. The sexual reproduction in most plants is controlled by the temperature, especially in Russia, where there is a cold winter and a hot summer. And during the shortening of the daytime, like now, plants will stop the reproductive growth and will start the vegetative growth. And after the winter, when the spring will start to increase the daytime, most flowering plants will produce flowers in response to the longer daytime, and the same is for the birds, or they also sense the shortening of the daytime and fly to the tropical countries. And also for the sexual reproduction, there are some requirements of the temperature, and many plants also feel the temperature and stop the sexual reproduction when the temperature decreases. Then also plants have tropisms. And tropisms are the response to the environmental stimuli such as light, gravity, and touch. And plants may respond by the directional growth, like in this picture. The plants will have a phototropis, that is directional growth towards the light. So that is why if you plant a uh, if your plant is located uh, at the window, then it will not grow uh, straight. It will be directed to the side of the window. So to prevent that, you want to rotate this pot every week, or so the uh, and this way the plant will change direction of the growth every week and will be somewhere in the center. So if you want your plant to be straight, then you have to rotate it 180 degrees every week. So and also you have to water it like every day. Once one spoon of water every day, not very much. Don't overwater your plants. And tropies are irreversible and can be positive and negative. So this is a positive. So the growth towards the uh, stimuli. So it can also be away from the stimuli. And tropies are under the hormonal control. So we will discuss that later. Uh, so this phototropism is positive and is done by the tips of the flower. So because uh, the plants will grow towards the light because it increases photosynthesis, and the blue light triggers the bending response to phototropism. So blue light is light with a wavelength between 400 and 500 nanometers. So to be able to respond to light, plants should contain a photoreceptor to absorb light. And the photoreceptor that absorbs the blue light and triggers the phototropic response and other blue light responses is a family of yellow pigments called Phototropis. Besides the Phototropis, plants can exhibit a gravitropis that is growing away from the center of Earth. So most of the root tips will have a positive gravitropism. And the root cap is the site of gravity receptors in roots. If you remove the root cap, then the root continues to grow, but it cannot anymore growth or downside to the gravity. Uh, so then next way of tropism is a thigmotropism, that is grow in response to touching an object. So the example of this type of the tropism is the curling growth of tendrils on stems like in cucumber, which helps climbing, or in wine, for example, uh, helps climbing on type of a surface, and the also this type of the tropism involves auxin, that is hormone for the tropism. Uh, so and hormones like auxin and play an important role in the development of the plant, and they make chemical signals and elicit variety of responses, uh, and that are important for growth and development. Uh, so the it's hard to understand how the hormones uh, act on plants because they are released in very small amounts, and their effects usually develop slowly, and they can influence differently depending on the tissue type and plant type. Uh, and Biologists distinguish five major classes of plant hormones, and these are auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, ethylene, and abscisic acid. And there are also some signaling molecules such as brassinosteroids, oligosaccharides, jasmonates, salicylic acid, so that is very close to the aspirin, and also cysteamine. So we will start from the auxins, and auxins promote cell elongation, and uh, uh, the uh, the existence of such hormones was proposed by the Darwin, uh, I think the most popular uh, botanist and scientist. And Darwin uh, is known for developing the theory of natural selection to explain the evolution. And he also studied the plant hormones, and he performed an experiment involving Phototropis in grass seedlings. Uh, and and in his experiment, he showed that the roots of the grass are exposed, so the grass seedlings that exposed to the light will grow in only one direction, and they bend toward the light. So the Darwins tried to influence this bending in several ways, and they covered the tip of the uh, seedling as soon as it emerged from the soil, uh, uh, and when they covered that part above where the bend of normally occur, the plant did not bend. So In other plants, they removed the tip and found that bending also did not occur. And when the bottom of the seedling with the curvative would occur was shielded from the light, the seedling bent towards light. From these experiments, Darwin concluded that some influence is transmitted from the upper to the lower part, causing it to bend. And in 20s, the one another biologist isolated the influence from the odd color tiles and he removed colored tile tips and placed them on tiny blocks of agar for a long time, and when he put one of these agar blocks on a decapitated colored tile, normal growth resumed. When he placed one of these agar blocks on one side of the tip of a decapitated colored tile in the dog, bending occurred as well. This bending indicated that the substance that diffused from the colored tile tip into the agar and later from the agar into the decapitated colored tile helped to bend the stem. So, and he named the substance Auxin, that means enlarge from the Greek. So Auxin is is making the stems to growth and elongate. And later several naturally occurring auxins have been identified, and some artificial auxins have been synthesized to promote the growth. And the most commonly naturally occurring auxin is indole acetic acid, that and Auxin moves downward along the shoot root auxin from its site of production, and usually the shoot apical meristem. So young leaves and seeds are also sites of auxin production. Auxin's most characteristic action is promotion of cell elongation in stems and coleoptiles, and these are usually done by the acidifying the cell walls. That increases the plasticity and enables them to expand under the force of the cell's internal turgor pressure. And Auxin's effect on cell elongation also provides an explanation of Phototropis. When a plant is exposed to light from only one side, like on this window, the auxin moves laterally to the shaded side of the stem before moving down the stem by polar transport. Because of the greater auxin concentration on the shaded side of the stem, the cells on the elongate more than the cells on the lighter side, because they are more acidic on the shaded side, and the stem bends towards the light, like at this picture. And auxins are also involved in Thicktropis and Thicktropis, that is the growth to the center of the earth, a downside and response for the touch, uh, like in curling, and that can be seen in some plants like the vine or cucumber. Uh, Auxin also exists other effects on plants. For example, some plants branch out very little when they grow. Growth in these plants occur almost exclusively from the shoot apical meristem rather than from auxiliary buds, which do not develop as long as the terminal bud is present. Such plants are said to exhibit apical dominance. The inhibition of auxiliary bud growth by the shoot apical meristem. In plants with strong apical dominance, auxin produced in the apical meristem exhibits auxiliary buds near the apical meristem from developing into actively growing shoots. When the apical meristem is pinched off, the auxin resource is removed and auxiliary buds grow to form branches. Apical dominance is often quickly re-established, however, as one branch begins to inhibit the growth of others. Other hormones, ethylene and cytokines, both discussed later, are also involved in apical dominance. As with many physiological processes, the interactions of these hormones rather than the action of one hormone alone may be responsible for apical dominance. So auxin also stimulates the development of the fruit. When auxin is applied to certain flowers in which fertilization has not occurred, the ovary enlarges and develops into a seedless fruit. Seedless tomatoes are produced in this manner. Auxin is not the only hormone involved in fruit development, however. Some manufacturers of synthetic auxins have structures similar to that of the auxin, and a synthetic auxin is used to stimulate root development on stem cuttings for asexual propagation, particularly of woody plants with horticultural importance. The synthetic auxins uh, are used as selective herbicides to kill uh, some wheat plants, and these compounds kill plants with broad leaves, but for reasons not completely understood, do not kill grasses. So if you want clean grass to play a golf, for example, then you can use these auxins. So at your backyard. Uh, Although both herbicides are similar in structure to the indole acetic acid, they disrupt the plant's normal growth processes. Because many of the world's most important crops are grasses, for example, wheat, corn, and rice, both 2,4-D and 2,4,5-D auxins can be used to kill broadleaf weeds that compete with these crops. So the use of the some of the compounds is prohibited in some countries because of the uh, associations with dioxins, that is toxic compounds, that is formed as byproducts during the manufacture of the, uh, for example, 2,4,5-T or Auxin. So uh, and uh, one of the many controversial aspects of the Vietnam War was defoliation program carried out by the United States in South Vietnam. So I recently visited Vietnam, and uh, they do many things. So actually, and so and I visited the museum that is actually dedicated to the Vietnam War, and so they have at the third floor of that museum, uh, they exhibit uh, uh, the fetuses of the human fetuses that are developed after the exposure to the Agent Orange. So, and these fetuses have many development disruptions, and they are teratogenic. So, and so will lead to the death of the child uh, during the development, or the birth of the with like two heads and like four legs, or one leg, one head, or one hand development. So, and many uh, gene disruptions that lead to uh, uh, the uh, the teratogenicity that will most of the time lead to the death, or to the uh, uh, some non unusual organ placement and development. So the Agent Orange is actually a mixture of the Auxins 24D and 245D. So the latter one is toxic, and uh, this Agent Orange was uh, uh, sprayed to as a herbicide over large areas of South Vietnam to expose suspected hiding areas and destroy crops planted by the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese troops. The negative impact of these herbicides on the environment is still being felt today. Many ecologically important mangrove forests and commercially valuable hardwood forests were destroyed. In addition, the herbicide sprays caused health problems in the native people and members of the US military who were exposed to them in the Vietnamese jungles. And the herbicides contained traces of dioxin, which is now known to cause birth defects in animals. Uh, reportedly, the number of birth defects and stillbirths in Vietnam increased during the herbicide spraying. Also, American veterans who were exposed to high levels of herbicide have more health problems than do other veterans, including certain types of cancer and skin disease. So, also, uh, this spraying of herbicides uh, uh, haven't helped the US to win the war, because Vietnamese people built underground uh, tunnels, and they hide it underground. So and uh, they uh, they had a underground ways through the long distances, and can hide in the uh, 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 can hide underground, and then uh, they can, so like they can uh, appear anywhere from the ground, uh, shoot the enemy, and then uh, go disappear. Um, and the entrances to this system were also hidden by the leaves, uh, and it was very hard uh, to identify the entrance unless you know the uh, exact location. And also the underground tunnels were very random and diverse, and it was and there was no way of uh, a, a way there were no maps, and a way of the um, there were no signs, and that is why everyone who goes underground to the tunnels should uh, uh, should know the structure by heart. So, and the Vietnamese troops have a special uh, 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 soldiers that were trained to remember the tunnels, and they mostly use women for that, because women were learning better, and also and this soldier usually moved at the front of the uh, groups and directed them. So, and if some soldier uh, wants will go underground and try to mimic the uh, and he and the soldier is will not know the direction of the movement and will ask for the help, then the Vietnamese troops will kill them, because they know that if someone is asking for the help when of the direction, then he is an enemy. So and also these systems of the tunnels, they had a special water sources and dining rooms, sleeping rooms. So, and all of this was underground, and that is why it's hidden, and that that was hard for the US militaries uh, uh, to kill the enemy. So, because they were not used to that kind of the war, and that is why US actually lost many troops in Vietnamese war, and have to remove their forces eventually. So then the next type of the hormones are gibberellins, and gibberellins promote cell elongation, and in also in 20s a Japanese biologist was studying a disease of rice in which the young rice seedlings grow extremely tall and spindly and fall over and die. The cause of the disease, dubbed the foolish seedling disease was a fungus that produces the chemical substance gibberellin, and only after the World War II, scientists in Europe and North America learned of this work, and the hormone was found to be one of a class of compounds collectively called gibberellins. And later studies show um, that the healthy plants also produce gibberellins. And gibberellins are hormones involved in many normal plant functions. The symptoms of the foolish seedling disease are caused by an abnormally high gibberellin concentration in the plant tissue. Currently, dozens of naturally occurring gibberellins are known, although many are probably inactive forms. There are no synthetic gibberellins. Gibberellins promote stem elongation in many plants. When gibberellin is applied to a plant, particularly certain dwarf varieties, the elongation may be spectacular. Some corn and pear plants that are dwarfs as a result of one or more mutations grow to a normal height when treated with gibberellin. Short-stemmed or high-yielding varieties of wheat have short stems because they have a reduced response to gibberellin. Gibberellins are also involved in bolting, that is the rapid elongation of a floral stalk that occurs naturally in many plants when they initiate flowering. So, gibberellins cause stem elongation by stimulating cells to divide as well as elongate. The actual mechanism of cell elongation differs from the elongation caused by auxin, and is without acidifying the cell wall. In gibberellin induced cell elongation, cell wall acidification does not occur. Instead, gibberellin increases the cell wall ability to expand. And gibberellins affect several reproductive processes in plants. They stimulate flowering, particularly in long-day plants. In addition, gibberellins can substitute for the low temperature that biennials require before they begin flowering. If gibberellins are applied to biennials during the first year of growth, flowering occurs without exposure to a period of low temperature. And gibberellins, like auxins, affect fruit development. As mentioned in the uh, beginning, the agriculturalists apply gibberellins to several varieties of grapes to produce larger fruits. Gibberellins are also involved in the seed germination of certain plants, most cereals and grasses. In a classic experiment involving barley seed germination, researchers showed that the release of gibberellin from the embryo triggers the synthesis of an enzyme that digests starch in the endosperm. As a result, glucose becomes available for absorption by the embryo as it resumes growth. In addition to mobilizing food reserves in certain newly germinated seeds, application of gibberellins substitutes for low temperature or light requirements for germination in seeds such as lettuce, oats, and tobacco. So I think that is all for today, and we will continue next week. Thank you very much for attending the lecture.